The automatic doors of St. Bridget's Medical Center hissed open at 4:47 in the afternoon, and the lobby fell into an uneasy hush. An 8-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat walked through them, her small hand wrapped tight around the leash of a German shepherd wearing a Navy medical assistant's vest. She did not run. She did not cry. She walked with the deliberate, measured steps of someone who had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her mind, and the dog beside her matched her pace exactly, its amber eyes scanning the room the way a soldier scans a perimeter. A security officer straightened at the front desk. 2 doctors in white coats stopped mid-conversation. A nurse setting down a clipboard froze, her pen hovering an inch above the paper. Nobody moved to stop the girl because nobody quite understood what they were looking at, and the not knowing was its own kind of alarm bell ringing through the corridor. The girl's name was Lily Doran, though no one in that lobby knew it yet, and the dog's name was Ranger, though the tag on his vest simply read medical assistance in stitched block letters. Lily stopped at the center of the room, beneath the fluorescent lights, and looked from face to face like she was searching for something specific, something none of the assembled staff could name. Then her eyes landed on a kneeling figure near the reception counter, a nurse in pale blue scrubs named Claire Whitaker, who had crouched down instinctively the moment the girl entered, the way you crouch for a frightened animal or a lost child, to make yourself smaller and less threatening. Claire did not reach for the girl. She did not reach for the dog. She simply waited, and something in that stillness made Lily walk straight toward her, past the administrator who had already begun composing a policy objection in his head, past the security guard reaching for his radio, past the small crowd of hospital staff whose confusion was quickly curdling into concern. Ranger's ears pricked at every sound in the lobby, but his body stayed loose, controlled, trained, and Claire noticed that before she noticed almost anything else. A dog that alert and that calm at the same time was not a pet. It was an instrument, tuned by someone who understood exactly what it needed to detect. Behind Claire, a police officer named Daniel Reyes stood near the window, half obscured by the glare of afternoon light, watching the scene with an expression that had gone very still, the particular stillness of a man recalculating everything he thought he knew about his day. He had been in the building for an unrelated matter, a routine welfare check follow-up, and he had not expected to find himself frozen at the edge of a scene that felt like it was unfolding in slow motion. Lily stopped a few feet from Claire and said, in a voice too steady for a child her age, "He needs you to check something. He won't stop pulling toward the east wing." The room went quiet enough to hear the hum of the vending machine near the elevators. Claire's eyes moved from the girl's face to the dog's posture, to the direction of his fixed, unwavering stare down the corridor marked exit, the same corridor a red arrow might point toward if someone had circled it in warning. Most people in that lobby saw a lost child and a service animal. Claire saw something else entirely, something she recognized in her bones because she had lived a version of it once, in a different uniform, in a different country, long before she had ever put on a pair of scrubs. She saw a dog trained not for comfort but for detection, the kind of specialized training that took years and cost more than most families could imagine, the kind of training reserved for search and rescue units, for bomb units, for the sort of work that leaves permanent creases around a handler's eyes. And she saw a child who had been taught, somewhere, by someone, exactly how to read that dog's signals without flinching. The administrator finally found his voice and said something about liability and about animals not being permitted past the lobby without prior clearance. His tone the practiced irritation of a man who believed rules existed to protect him from inconvenience. Claire did not look at him. She kept her eyes on Lily, and on Ranger, whose entire body had begun to tremble with the particular urgency of a working dog being restrained from doing his job. "Who trained him?" Claire asked quietly, and Lily's chin lifted just slightly, a flash of pride breaking through the fear. "My dad did, before he went missing." The words landed in the lobby like a dropped tray of instruments, sharp and unmistakable, and Officer Reyes took a step forward from the window, his jaw tightening, because he recognized the name Doran, and he recognized what kind of man trained dogs like that for a living, and he understood, faster than anyone else in the room, that whatever was happening here had started long before this little girl ever walked through those sliding doors. Claire reached out, slow and open-palmed, and let Ranger sniff her hand before she rose to her feet, her decision already made. "Show me," she said. and Lily's shoulders dropped an inch. The first sign of relief she had allowed herself since walking into the building. If you feel that same chill Claire felt in this moment, that instinct that something larger is unfolding just beneath the surface of an ordinary afternoon, make sure you are subscribed to this channel, because what Claire is about to discover in the East Wing will change everything this hospital thought it knew about the quiet nurse in blue scrubs, and you will not want to miss a single second of what comes next. Claire walked beside Lily down the East Corridor with Ranger leading the way, his nose low, his pace unwavering, and the administrator's protests fading behind them as Officer Reyes fell into step at the rear, one hand resting near his radio but not reaching for it, because some part of him had already decided to trust whatever was happening ahead of him more than the rulebook behind him. The corridor narrowed near a service stairwell rarely used by patients, marked only by a faded sign for maintenance access, and Ranger stopped abruptly at its base, sitting down hard the way a trained detection dog sits when it has found precisely what it was searching for. Claire crouched beside him again, running her hand along the door frame, and Lily spoke without being asked, her voice trembling now for the first time since she had entered the building. "My dad used to work here. Before the accident that wasn't really an accident. He told me if anything ever happened to him, I should bring Ranger somewhere with cameras. Somewhere with people who couldn't just make me disappear." The words hit differently in that narrow stairwell than they had in the open lobby, the walls seeming to close in around the weight of them, and Claire felt the old, familiar tightening in her chest that she had spent years trying to leave behind in another life, a life where trusting the wrong system had cost people everything. She had once been Captain Claire Whitaker, a combat medic attached to a joint task force that specialized in extracting people who were never supposed to be found, and though she had traded her fatigues for scrubs 3 years ago, believing that chapter of her life was permanently closed, the muscle memory of a crisis unfolding around her had never actually left. She looked at Reyes and said, in a tone that left no room for argument, "I need you to pull the personnel and visitor logs for this stairwell going back 6 months. And I need you to do it before anyone in administration has a chance to touch them." Reyes did not question the order. Something about the way she said it, the calm, absolute authority beneath the soft-spoken nurse exterior, told him this was not a request from a civilian bystander but an instruction from someone who had given orders like it before and expected them followed. Lily's father, it turned out, had been a hospital facilities engineer named Marcus Doran who had also, in a quieter chapter of his life, trained detection dogs for a private security contractor, a skill he had passed down to Ranger and, indirectly, to his daughter, teaching her to read the animal signals the way other parents teach children to read street signs. 3 weeks earlier, Marcus had reported what he believed was a pattern of missing medical supplies being funneled out through this very stairwell, a pattern large enough and valuable enough that reporting it had apparently made him a liability to someone within the hospital's own walls. He had vanished on a Tuesday evening, his car found abandoned 2 counties away, and the official investigation had quietly stalled within days, the kind of stall that happens when the wrong people are asked the wrong questions. Lily, refusing to accept the silence that followed, had done the only thing her father had ever told her to do in an emergency. Trust Ranger and find someone who could not be bought. Claire pulled up the maintenance panel beside the stairwell door, her hands moving with a precision that surprised even her, years of muscle memory resurfacing as she located a hidden compartment behind a false panel, exactly where a trained eye would know to look and nowhere an untrained one would think to search. Inside were ledgers, handwritten in Marcus Doran's own hand, documenting dates, quantities, and names, evidence he had hidden in the one place he knew his daughter's dog would eventually lead someone honest enough to find it. Reyes returned minutes later with the visitor logs, his face pale, because one name appeared with suspicious regularity on nights when supply discrepancies had been reported. The hospital's own director of operations, a man who had been standing in that very lobby only 20 minutes earlier, composing complaints about liability and unauthorized animals. Within the hour, hospital security had been quietly replaced by state investigators. The director was being escorted from the building in handcuffs rather than a tailored suit, and Lily sat wrapped in a blanket in the pediatric wing with Ranger's head resting heavy and protective across her lap, waiting for updates on a search that had, for the first time in 3 weeks, real direction and real hope. Claire knelt beside her one more time, and Lily finally allowed herself to cry, the tears of a child who had been carrying an adult's burden for far too long and could finally set part of it down. Word spread through the hospital by morning that the quiet, soft-spoken nurse from the 3rd floor had once commanded operations far more dangerous than anything within these walls, and that she had used every ounce of that training not for glory, but to give one brave little girl and her father's loyal dog the chance they deserved.